What's up guys, this is Jan for Chess24, and in this video, contrary to my normal habits, I'm not going to look at a Super Grandmaster game, but instead it's Prodigy time. We will study the game of a 10-year-old young man versus an experienced Grandmaster. And this is the young man. Here we can see him, Indian guy, not 11 years old yet. I double checked. Some sources say his birthday is July 10th, but I believe it is August 10th. So we still have a couple days till he turns 11. And the first problem is, this guy is an international master at age 10, 2429 or whatever, which is insanely high, of course. The first problem, however, is I can't pronounce his name. So we're gonna need a useful shortcut for ways to call him, because it does look like he's gonna be up there. But help me out here. How do you pronounce that? Can we call you Praggo? Praggnanandhaa? That's too long. I can't do it. But I can't hold it against him. Please let us know how to pronounce that name. And instead of quizzing everybody about that, let's move to the game. Because our protagonist, 10-year-old international master, that is very important information, because sometimes these young players' ratings can be a little inflated because they have a high so-called K factor that allows them to move up and down quickly. But that doesn't happen if you've earned 3 IM norms at that age. That you have to prove you have the strength. And he's playing a Grandmaster in, who also has a tough name actually, Jan Krejci. The first name I can do, Jan sounds familiar, but Krejci, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that as well. Normally I try not to spoil the result, but since I'm doing this video, I guess you have a hunch how this game could end. Knight f3, excellent first move, d5, and Praggo, I'll just call you Praggo, goes for 2 g3, Kramnik style. c6, bishop g2, bishop g4, one of the most solid ways to meet the Reti. d3, showing that he doesn't mind playing the, what do we call this? King's Indian attack, I believe we call it. Preparing e4 has also been played by Kramnik, amongst other people. d3, knight to d7, castles, knight gf6, queen to e1. Very subtle, wants to keep this knight's options still open and prepare e2, e4 in one go. But all theory, e5, e4, d takes e, d takes e. Here, the first small surprise, maybe Krejci was trying to get his young opponent out of book, but I'm not a fan of his next move. He played bishop takes f3, which gives up a bishop unprovoked. Theory, or the main move I should say, is bishop c5 here. Then if white goes h3, now you could make a case for giving up this bishop, because this bishop does have a bit of a sad future sometimes in these positions if it goes to h5. So here bishop takes f3 makes some sense, but to do this without being asked is not to my liking. Bishop f3, bishop c5, knight d2, castles, queen e2. The queen has done her duty on e1 and now goes to bear square. Rook to e8, a4, all very typical play. a4 gives black a bit of an unpleasant choice if you want to allow a5 or if you want to block it with a5. Because if you block it later on, this pawn might become a weakness. Krejci decides to block the pawn indeed. Bishop to g2 back. Very sensible play, preparing knight f3, knight h4, should it be necessary. Knight f8, also a good maneuver, headed towards e6, knight f3, and another Grandmaster move which I do not approve of at all is the next move, the move knight to g6. This is sometimes a good square for the knight, but not if white already played g3, taking both these squares away. Doesn't make sense to me. Why didn't you go knight e6? Knight e5 doesn't work because of knight d4. And it just looks like a much better square. White would probably go c3 to control d4. Then whatever, queen c7. I'd still slightly prefer white because of the 2 bishops, but nothing bad has happened here. So knight g6, very strange move. b3, good move, reacting to the new situation that you don't need c3 to cover d4. b3, queen c7, and bishop g5, another good move. Showing he's not hell-bent on putting this bishop on b2, where currently it doesn't do that much, but instead forces this knight away from its square on f6. Knight d7, you don't want to allow bishop takes f6, and rook a1, harmoniously completing development. h6, another move. Probably I should stop criticizing every Grandmaster move and be more critical about Praggo's moves, but so far Praggo's play very well. And h6, once again, I'm not a fan of. This time the reason is a little more hidden. Does make it much harder to later play f6. And we might need f6 to cover e5 and to just stabilize the whole position. But after h6, it's gonna be much uglier to play f6 because it's gonna weaken all the light squares. What I'm saying will hopefully become clear soon. Praggo throws in another good move there. He goes bishop to h3. Zwischenzug, activating this bishop, headed towards f5 and of course targeting d7. Therefore hg, rook d7 is kind of out of the question. So the knight has to move, knight d8. This move I'm on board with. The knight is headed towards e6. Bishop to c1 back. The bishop has done his duty. And rook a d8. Also fair, challenging the d-file. But remember what I said about Mr. a5. Bishop b2, bishop a7, bishop f5. Not sure about bishop a7, by the way. While I'm criticizing every move, black's position is unpleasant already. But what is this bishop doing there? Maybe you need it here to cover e5. I don't know. Bishop a7, bishop f5, and now we see what I was talking about. You'd like to go f6 here, but f6 really, really weakens all these light squares around the black king. Krejci does play f6 to at least keep this formation stable, but Praggo once again reacts very quickly, removes his bishop from this long diagonal where it wasn't doing that much, biting on e5, f6, finds new work on this diagonal, which was vacated, by the way, by bishop a7. Enough arrows, queen f7, trying to stabilize what can be stabilized. Knight d2, nice little move. This knight doesn't have that much to do on f3, and returns to the c4 square. Knight e6, what else? You must activate this knight. And here I'm gonna have to criticize Praggo, because knight c4 allows knight d4 with some counterplay. Obviously, the intention is very honorable to either grab a pawn or an exchange with knight d6. But he could just have taken this knight. It's painful to give up this good bishop, but the results would have been worth it, because after knight c4 here, it's very hard for black to play, and no counterplay at all. This pawn is hanging. If you go b6, this knight jumps around knight d6, and the black position is just terrible. So bishop takes e6. As painful as it is, sometimes you gotta give up half of the bishop pair to chase other advantages. Another move I like, if you can't bring yourself to take, is just c3 to stop any knight d4 shenanigans and then go knight c4. Anyway, Praggo went knight to c4, which is a good move, but it allows some counterplay. Knight d4, queen g4, that was his point. If knight f5, e f5, followed by eating things. Therefore, this knight has to go all the way back, knight to f8, and he decides to give the other bishop go. Bishop takes f8, trying to vacate the g6 square for this light square monster. So it's not like he missed something, he just had a different plan, which in fact is fairly sensible as well. For example, rook f8, not a great idea because of rook takes d4, followed by bishop to e6. Black's best chance here was to take this bishop, this monster, on f5, and after e takes f5, go queen takes f8. Doesn't look very appealing, and it's not after knight takes a5. Black is a pawn down, but in this position he did have some hope. For example, queen e7, and it's not gonna be easy to convert. White is better, no question about it, but this is still gonna be work. One blunder, of course. Well, one blunder, for example, I'd be very capable of making. It's queen e4, bishop takes f2. If king f2, queen c5 check. If rook f2, rook takes d1. Still, of course, you can avoid that. Go queen e2 or whatever. White is better, but the game would have continued. Instead, bishop takes f8, queen takes f8 was played, and that allows Praggnanandhaa. I'm not sure. I feel bad calling him Praggo. Can I do that? We need an official nickname like Vichy. It allows him to conclude his plan by going bishop g6. And remember what I said about h6 earlier. It's always much easier to comment these things with hindsight, having seen the game. But pawns never move back. Rook e7, what else? c3, well played. Forcing this knight, well, not forcing it, but baiting it to go far, far away. And Krejci does grab the pawn. Maybe knight e6 was more resilient, but it's still fairly horrible. Knight a5 or h4, bishop f5. With opposite color bishops, this one is just so much stronger than his counterpart. So if you're gonna suffer, might as well suffer for a pawn. Might have been Krejci thinking. Rook takes d8, queen takes d8, and here, small tactics exercise. If you want to pause the video, go ahead and figure out how white can win here. If you don't, let's just keep watching. The solution is the move queen to d1. A little counterintuitive, offering the exchange of queens. But turns out after queen d1, rook d1, there's not much to be done about rook d8 and checkmate. Try stopping it. Not easy. Black would have to give up a piece with bishop d4 or knight d4, which is fairly hopeless. Instead, Praggo played rook to d1, which is a very natural move, and it keeps a massive advantage with all the active pieces. But queen d1 was a very weird and beautiful way to end the game instantly. Queen to f8, why not? Knight to d6, very nice play. He understands that pawns don't really matter with opposite color bishops, but it is about Mr. King and the light squares. This knight can jump here, it can jump here. There is this plan, which is very, very nasty. Bishop f5, queen g6. The white pieces are just so much stronger than their counterparts. This knight hurries to get back into the action. Knight c5. And this was an excellent moment to play the move bishop f5, which I just mentioned. Threatening queen g6 followed by queen h7 checkmate. There's not all that much to be done about it. Best move apparently is g5, but that move itself says it all. It's a horribly ugly move, and it also has the problem that after knight c8, there is a bit of a family fork on the 8th rank, not something you see every day. But Praggo starts drifting a little bit here, maybe some time trouble, move 32, and after queen e2, he has to start winning the game again. His point is to give a check here, stopping knight takes a4. Rook to d7, queen c4, king h8. Black manages to stay in the game for a bit. Knight f7 check, winning an exchange. And it should have stayed at that with rook takes f7. When after, let's say, bishop takes f7, bishop b6, white is better, no question. But it's not going to be easy to win. There's no obvious ways to enter the black camp, and the battle would have continued. Instead, queen f7 was played. Very clever, but is this a good move? My computer says it's not, and I tend to trust my computer. The point why it's not a good move is the move queen takes f7. And I could imagine that both sides missed, and here after rook f7, white shouldn't take, but instead he should give a little check. And there would only be one more move to be made in this game. Therefore, after queen f7, black would have to go rook d1, king g2. But with this construction, it's gonna be very, very tough to defend the king. I could make more computer moves here, but it doesn't matter. Just believe me that it's almost impossible to keep this king alive because the light squares are too weak around it. Instead, bishop takes f7 was played, but this is a much worse version of what we just saw. Because here, not so easy to activate the queen. So you have to win the position again. Rook d8 makes sense, bishop g6, rook b8. Looking for some counterplay with b5, h4, also sensible, just trying to seal the deal, or at least seal the coffin for the black king with h5. But b5, bit of counterplay here, takes, queen f7. Praggo stays active, targets the a7 bishop, bishop b6, queen e7, hinting at queen d6. And b4, Krejci, of course, is a grandmaster. He won't just roll over and resign. He's trying to fight back here. cb, ab, queen to d6, very sensible once again, keeping black busy. Bishop a7, queen c7. Only way to avoid direct loss of material is rook a8. And now the finishing combination, or I think it's a finishing combination. I'm not sure how much of it was calculated, but if it was all calculated, it's very impressive, because Praggo decides, let b-pawns be b-pawns. This guy can queen, I don't care. He goes bishop f7. Black is absolutely forced to push, else bishop d5 just collects lots of material. So b3, bishop d5 anyway, b2, grabs the rook, b1 queen, queen takes a7. Now the material is equal all of a sudden, but Praggo has rightly calculated, or I like to think he has, that this king cannot be safe because the attack on the light squares is still overwhelmingly strong. And that's what happened. Finish, knight d3, bishop d5, king h7, queen a8, h5, bishop f7, knight e1, king h3, and there is nothing to be done. I should add that. Instead of h5, let's say queen e1, looking for counterplay. Comes too slow because of a very pretty checkmate. So that was a deserved, hard-fought but deserved victory by a 10-year-old international master against an experienced 23-year-old grandmaster. It's the beauty of chess. Some people say that age doesn't matter and the prodigies just get younger and younger. Now, I didn't do this video to pick on Mr. Krejci, whose name I'm probably mispronouncing as well, but I should mention that Praggo, as I like to call him, I think that's gonna stick, has a rival at his age group. He's 10 years old. There's another guy who's a couple of months younger, also 10 years old, and that guy also happened to face Mr. Krejci in this tournament. Let's have a look what happened there. No, that's not him. I don't have a picture. But I am talking about Yavokir Sindarov, who I believe, I should check my facts, I believe he's from Uzbekistan. Please correct me if I'm wrong about that. I've been told that he is a couple months younger, and these guys have been back and forth about who's the strongest under 10 player, and I'm sure this rivalry will continue at much higher ratings and age groups. Anyway, he also faced Grandmaster Krejci and he got a lost position. This is move 121, by the way, h6, king h7, and here the only winning move, believe it or not, was the move knight to f5, covering h6, and there is nothing to be done. But instead, Krejci moved in for the kill with knight d5, planning knight f6 check. Turns out that's a blunder, after which the game is a draw though. Knight e4 check, king f4, king takes h6, king takes e4, and the star move, bishop to h5. And as we know, two knights can't really win against a lone king. Well, that's why bishop h5 is so important. This bishop forces itself to be sacrificed for the g4 pawn. Nothing you can do about it, and the game ended peacefully. So not a good tournament when it comes to beating up kids for Jan Krejci. By the way, both these games are from the... I should share more facts with you. Both these games are from the Pardubice Open in the year 2016. So that's our first episode of Prodigy Watch, which of course is basically shameless clickbait. But it is also very impressive that these guys at age 10 are such strong chess players. Yeah, it's a scary world out there. World of open tournaments with 10-year-old international masters, and we should keep an eye on Praggo and on Sindarov. I'm sure we'll hear a lot more from them in the future. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.